What is the difference between a Kundalini awakening versus Kundalini activations? So I'm sure you've heard Kundalini awakening many different times. And a Kundalini awakening is kind of when you have this extreme shift in perception and consciousness. So what you believed before has completely changed or shifted. A lot of the times people will describe this as all of a sudden they see through the matrix, or all of a sudden they're seeing from a different point of view that they never saw before. There's kind of like this extreme awe that comes with this experience and this extreme emotional response of, I want to say euphoria in a way, but like this very extreme, joyful, childlike energy of seeing the world in a completely different way. And when we talk about Kundalini awakenings, this is where it can look really manic. This is where your kind of psyche is cracked open and you can look kind of crazy to people who are not experiencing it or don't understand it. And this is usually the beginning of a huge spiritual awakening and transform. So the Kundalini awakening is the crack open, like the initial crack open that happens. So people will describe this as happening after they meet a twin flame or after they recognize somebody's soul, and all of a sudden they'll start to move in this direction. There's a complete shift of consciousness that happens here. And the other way that people describe this too is that it's the serpents, the two serpents that kind of weave up through your spine. And that's like the other experience of it. So you might experience really hot flashes, body chills, just like this. It's an understanding or this realization that there's so much more than just you. There's so much more to this world than just you. Part of you is able to usually experience some spiritual experiences. So maybe you'll see some spiritual spirits, maybe you'll hear them, maybe you'll start experiencing different things like that. But there's this kind of recognition that there's something much larger than yourself. And that comes with the awakening. Now, the reason that I'm talking about this today is because I have been trying to understand the awakening compared to the activations, because after my awakening, I've had many little mini awakenings happening. And that is what they call the activations. So Kundalini activations are these little tiny rebirth energies that are happening after the initial awakening. So you'll have this huge awakening thing. It's a complete shift in the way that you view things. And then just like the tarot card, the death and rebirth card, right? You will have these little activations that will occur on your pathway forward. And these little activations, they're not so little, but they're smaller than the big one. Okay. So I know I'm calling them, they're not small. They don't feel small. They're actually pretty intense, but they're a lot less intense than the big awakening that I personally experienced. So for some people, it can be really huge. For some people, it can be smaller. It really depends. It also depends on how much you fight it. It depends on how much you let yourself buy into what's happening as opposed to fight it. Got a bug in here. And so with that being said, right, these activations happen. And what's happening with these activations is they are clearing out your chakras. So what I have come to realize is that each activation is clearing out a different chakra set. So what comes up with these activations is fear, worries, scarcity mindset, grief. And in these activations, you'll experience intense feelings of this. And it's so crazy because, one day you will be completely cool. You're feeling positive. You're looking towards the future. You're feeling motivated. It's all good. And then all of a sudden you'll start to feel like this intense fear that just like all of a sudden sweeps over you and you have no idea where it's coming from and what the absolute hell. And I just was talking to a client about this and trying to help them understand what was happening, because I think when you can understand what's happening, it makes it a lot easier to move through it, to come out the other side of it, to not be swept up in it. So there's a clearing of the chakras happening each time these activations happen. But it's kind of weird because it's like when this experience happens, this activation, it feels like you're taking like 10 steps back. Like all of a sudden you were happy-go-lucky, you were good, everything's fine. And then all of a sudden you're back to where you were before and you're like, how the heck did I get here? And I've noticed that these activations happen a lot in the in between when you are becoming. And it's about learning how to manage these activations. So personally, what I have come to understand and how I have learned to manage them and take care of them, which I've been through many of them at this point, to be honest with you, probably about, I want to say more than 20. It's been a lot. And I feel like they happen every 2 weeks for me. And if you're like me, where you're the type of person who the universe says, let it go, you drop it, then you're probably going through these death and rebirths as well, very quickly and one after the other. And they can feel very intense and kind of like you're going backwards. So, fears and worries and concerns will all come up to be released, for you to be able to see them from a different perspective so you can let them go and unclog the chakra that is being asked to be cleared right now. And so, money fears, right? We're clearing out that root chakra. Fears of being seen, we're clearing out that chakra in our solar plexus. Fears of upsetting other people, we're clearing out our sacral. Fears of what we're speaking and being judged for what we say and judged for our truth and judged for who we are, we're clearing out that throat. Fears around our power and how strong we are and what we're capable of, we're clearing out this third eye guy, right? And one thing I've noticed is when you start clearing out the upper half, the crown is being cleared with that almost always. So for me personally, I get a lot of crown vibrations, and that usually comes with the clearing out of anything in this space of my body. Now, one thing that I've learned to do as this happens, and I actually suggested this to a client the other day, is that when you are in a really good place, write a letter to yourself to remind yourself of who you are and how you're feeling and where you're at. So that when you go through these activations that can be completely debilitating and kind of throw you off your path, you don't let yourself get completely consumed by them. So I've realized that, and I'm sure you've heard this before in the spiritual community, right? Taking a step back and being able to see things from an objective perspective, right? So this is the avatar, right? And I am the soul behind the avatar. And my soul is watching my avatar have a human experience. It doesn't mean that you don't let yourself have that human experience. It does not mean that you don't let yourself move through that. Actually, that's exactly what you do. You let yourself feel it, you let yourself empty it out of you, and you let yourself move on. But you don't make meaning of it. And so when those fears and those worries are coming up, there's an acknowledgement that you can have where you're recognizing, oh, I'm going through another death and rebirth. Oh, I'm going through another ascension, if that's what you prefer to call it. Oh, I'm going through another nervous system rewiring, right? Whatever you want to call it. They're all kind of the same idea, to be honest with you. And when I can acknowledge that that's what I'm going through, and this doesn't say anything about me, it doesn't say anything about what I'm doing, it doesn't have anything to do with what's going on with me right now, it's just something that I'm experiencing to be cleared and released, then I don't attach to it. And that's what they mean by being objective. When you don't attach to it, then you can understand that this is an experience that I'm having. It will pass. I always say that to myself. It too will pass. This will not be forever. And let me just be easy with myself so it can pass through so I can keep going. Because that's kind of what these activations are. But in the beginning, they can be very intense. And one thing I remembered working with this client the other day is that they can like cause a lot of scattered thoughts, like very scattered, kind of anxious, restlessness kind of experiences, especially when you first start experiencing them. As you experience more and more of them and you move through them, they do calm down a lot more and they don't feel as exhausting and overwhelming. But in the beginning, you're very scattered, very overwhelmed. It can feel like you're completely anxious and restless and kind of like manic in a way, or like losing it in a way. And the other thing that my client brought up too was that they felt like they were on drugs. That can also feel like it too. That is a part of the process, I feel like sometimes. So those are some of the side effects or symptoms, but there's also difficulty sleeping. So you'll have a really hard time falling asleep at night. You'll have a hard time staying asleep at night. You might feel like you're completely restless and have so much energy. And that's kind of other aspects of this as well. And this is all meant to put you into alignment. And it's so funny because you're kind of going into this like really crazy state to get into alignment, right? But that's kind of the process. So that's what an activation is. And from my personal experience, and I've been in this awakening journey now for a year and a half or so, it's pretty consistent, the activations that happen over and over and over and over and over again. And you'll continue to have them until you're completely cleared out, until you can hold that clear out. So one of the other things that I'm thinking about as I'm saying that is, if you clear out your root chakra, right, and you go through this activation, you clear it out, you can re-clog it or re-block it, right, by feeding into those beliefs again. So then you have to go through the activation again before you can truly clear it. So, right, we support these things or we don't support these things by what we choose to do after those activations. I hope that makes sense, because that's an important part of this process too, is understanding how your thoughts and your beliefs either re-block that activation and keep you going through the same one, or actually push you forward. It all comes down to how you choose to think and the perception that you choose to take and perspective that you choose to take after the fact of that thing. Or even while you're going through the activation, the change in perspective is the most important thing. Because if you can shift your perspective to a healthier perspective, then the activation has done its course and it's gone, right? But until you can do that, it will keep recycling until you're ready to kind of take that new perspective or take that new belief as true, I guess, to move forward. I do want to acknowledge that these activations can feel really intense. They're exhausting afterwards. A lot of the time, you'll feel very fatigued and exhausted in your body. And that's because everything is restructuring and you really just need some time to let it all settle, let it all integrate. So, a part of this process is also letting yourself rest, letting yourself be still as you integrate and shift your consciousness and kind of reorganize your unconscious mind to take on the new perspective, the new belief system, the new way of moving. So there will be this really intense kind of feeling, and then there will be this intense fatigue or exhaustion. And that's really where you need to just learn to let yourself rest without guilt so that you can truly integrate it. If you do not let yourself rest, that's also another way that you are pushing this off. So the rest part is really important so that you can integrate everything that you learned and you can move on to the next one, right? But if you don't let yourself integrate, you don't let yourself rest, you also get stuck in that cycle and stay in there as well. And so this is why people can get stuck in the in-between, for a really long time. Because there are certain ways that you have to shift and change the way that you're thinking and change the way that you're moving for you to actually integrate the information and move forward. And if you are working against it, then you can get very caught and stuck in these activation cycles over and over and over and over again until you finally do it the way that you need to do it to release it with compassion and move forward. And part of that is being able to rest without guilt. So, this is the difference between an awakening and an activation, a Kundalini awakening and a Kundalini activation. And everybody obviously experiences these things a little bit different. I'm obviously basing this off of my own experience and what I've heard from other people as well and the people that I work with. So also recognize that your story may be a little bit different, and that's totally okay. We're all unique in our own ways. And so this journey is also extremely unique as well. But if you do feel like you're stuck in the in-between and you'd like some help out of that in-between, I did create a 3-month program called The Sovereign Self. This is a program where you will build self-trust from the inside out so that you can move forward with unshakable confidence. You will stop doubting yourself, stop worrying, stop second guessing, stop hesitation. I'll help you get out of those cycles so that you can move forward to where you're meant to go and who you're meant to become. So if this resonates with you, you can go ahead and go to crystalclearmystic.com and you can fill out an application. Let's have a conversation and see if it's a good fit for you. I also have a masterclass on there if you'd like more information. I love you so much, and you got this. Keep going.